Ongoing geopolitical pressures in Ukraine and the Middle East are forcing NATO countries to crank up their defense capabilities, and Canada's military is looking grim. With dwindling recruitment numbers and consistent procurement challenges, Canada's defense capabilities are in dire straits. Some experts saying a radical shift is the only way to boost our defense spending and reinvest in our armed forces. Richard Shmuka is one of those experts. He's a defense procurement expert and a senior fellow at Macdonald-Laurier Institute. He's our guest this morning. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Anne-Marie.
First of all, how would you describe the current state of our Canadian military and its defense capabilities?
So it's not great. We've seen a lot of challenges with the number of troops. Certainly the recruitment numbers have been great. Mostly our major capabilities are suffering from neglect and basically underinvestment for the past 20 years. If you look at any one of our major capabilities, like our troops, we only have around 2,000 that are mostly deployed to Latvia as our major contingency. Our frigates, we barely are able to get 2 frigates out at any one time, and we have a limited number of fighters that are available for our NORAD duties in the north. So it's not looking great compared to if we look in the past, or if we compare it to some of our allies, where we're kind of treading water, and it hasn't been a good couple of years for the Canadian Armed Forces.
Yeah, prior to both the Trudeau and Harper governments, we did have a larger military, and defense spending was a bigger priority. Why did that change?
So we can trace this basically to the end of the Cold War, maybe a little earlier, but Canada really, after the fall of the Soviet Union, cut back its military spending, and at the same time continued to do major operations. If we think about Yugoslavia in the 1990s, Afghanistan, and even our operations in the Middle East and in Eastern Europe in the 2010s, we sort of kept using the military at high levels, but the funding that went into sort of sustaining them and buying equipment and other sort of resources for them to sort of keep their size and keep their capability wasn't really invested in. And so what you've seen over the past 20 years or so is sort of be a decline in the sort of capability of the forces, even though they've been extremely active compared to what we had done before.
Would it be fair to say it's seen as less of a priority?
Well, absolutely, and I think that's been the case for many, many years. Even during the Afghanistan years, you saw funding go specifically into the Army and a lot of their priorities, but other areas such as the Navy, and the Air Force really didn't get the same level of investment as the Army. So it's really sort of caused an issue where we've kind of reached the end of the life of a lot of the capabilities of the armed forces, and they probably needed replacement over a decade ago, but never really got it.
I want to touch on 2 topics just before you go. One is recruitment, and then the other one is going to be our targets, our NATO targets. But let's start with numbers first of all. In 2023, Canada's military had about 63,000 personnel, 22,000 reserve forces members. So that left the military with just more than 16,000 positions short. That is a huge drop from the 90,000 personnel we had back around 30 years ago. So why have recruitment levels dropped so much? What's behind this troubling trend?
So the number of applicants every year is actually usable, or is close to where it needs to be. The real issue is actually getting a lot of these applicants over into actual training and induction into the Canadian Armed Forces, and that's really been a pain point for them. There's also been a high level of attrition. Morale in some cases has not been very high, and you have what's called a death spiral, where troops that are a fewer number of troops get used for more and more operations, and they get tired and they sort of disgruntled and leave. And so you've had higher attrition and lower number of sort of induction and bringing into the forces, and that's really caused a lot of the pain in the numbers of personnel in the forces.
We are now under some significant pressure, to say the least, to meet our 2% target on defense spending. It has been in the headlines for the last couple of weeks. What needs to be shifted and then prioritized in order to boost our spending? It's a lot of money we're behind by.
Yeah, I think the number one thing is political will. I think if you have a government that says, we need spending now and find ways to do this, and not to sort of listen to a lot of the underlying views within the bureaucracy and within the sort of military that sort of say, well, we got to be careful about value for money and other issues like that. Really, if we get a priority to say we need the forces at a certain level and capability, and I'm going to put some political capital into it, I think that would really help grease the wheels. Other than that, you're going to need serious reform within the military, specifically also the procurement system, and that will help sort of ease some of the challenges that they face on a day-to-day basis to get this equipment into service.
Richard Shamuka, defense procurement expert and senior fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. Thanks for being on this morning.
Thanks for having me.
If you liked that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.